I'm sitting here trying to make sense of everything that's happened, and I feel like my whole world has flipped upside down. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Kelly for 6 years. On the surface, we had what looked like a perfect life. I worked hard as a software engineer, and Kelly was just starting to build her career in marketing after I helped her pay off her student loans. I thought we were a team, the kind of couple that could tackle anything together. Things started off great, but over the last few months I noticed changes in Kelly. Small things at first. She'd come home late from work more often, and when she did, she seemed distant. I brushed it off as work stress. After all, the marketing field can be cutthroat, right? But the late-night phone calls became more frequent, and I found myself questioning her excuses. It was a rainy Friday evening, and I was gearing up for a quiet night at home. I decided to check my phone, scrolling through social media, when I saw a post from one of her friends, a guy named Derek. They were all at some bar laughing, and there was Kelly looking happier than I had seen her in months. I felt a pang in my stomach, but I tried to shake it off. Maybe it wasn't a big deal. But then I noticed something. Her phone was buzzing nonstop on the kitchen table. I picked it up, half expecting to find a bunch of work texts. Instead, there were messages from Derek, filled with flirty emojis and even a few suggestive comments. My heart raced. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I felt as if I had stumbled upon something I wasn't ready for. I confronted her that night. She came home late again, her eyes a bit glazed over, probably from a few drinks, and I could smell the perfume of another woman, a sickeningly sweet scent. "Kelly, we need to talk," I said, my voice shaking. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence as she flipped her hair over her shoulder. I showed her the messages, and for a moment she looked genuinely shocked. But then she flipped the script faster than I could process. "Jake, you're being ridiculous. He's just a friend. You know how I am, everyone flirts." The excuses kept coming. She claimed that it was just harmless fun, that I was being insecure, and that I needed to trust her. I wanted to scream, "Trust? You've betrayed my trust." Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of betrayal wash over me. The woman who I thought was my partner was standing in front of me, a stranger making excuses for something that felt like a knife in my gut. I spent the night tossing and turning, replaying her words over and over in my head. How could she lie to my face like that? I remembered all the sacrifices I made for her, the years of support while she pursued her career, and the moment I wiped out her student loans to give her a fresh start. I felt like I had been a fool. That's when the anger hit. I realized I couldn't just let this slide. I needed a plan. I wanted to make her feel the weight of her betrayal. But how? I was no longer just the supportive husband. I was a man who felt stripped of dignity and respect. I knew I had to channel this pain into something productive. In the coming days, I started researching how to better myself, not just to get even, but to find a path forward, whatever it would be. I wanted to make sure I invested in my own future, both in career and personal growth. If she thought she could take advantage of my kindness, she was about to learn a lesson in consequences. And so began my journey into revenge, not just for the sake of getting back at her, but for reclaiming a part of myself that I felt was lost. I'll explain my plan in the next part. After that fateful night, everything felt different. I was reeling from the shock of Kelly's betrayal, but deep down, beneath the anger, a fire was igniting within me, a determination to reclaim control over my life. I knew I couldn't allow myself to wallow in sadness or resentment for too long. I needed to focus on building a better version of myself, one that didn't revolve around a woman who had so callously disregarded the vows we took. I started by hitting the books, literally. I enrolled in a local community college to take evening classes in business management. It was something I had always wanted to do, but had put off in favor of supporting Kelly's marketing career. Now I was doing it for myself. I wanted to gain knowledge, skills, and a broader perspective on life and work. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of lectures, group assignments, and networking with other like-minded individuals. I was excited to be learning again, and it felt good to invest in my own future. But every time I was in class, a part of me couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. I would sit in the back, surrounded by eager students, my mind drifting back to Kelly and Derek. I imagined them together, laughing, sharing secrets, while I was here trying to better myself. The more I educated myself, the more I realized the value of knowledge, something Kelly couldn't take away. In between classes, I began to make new friends both in and out of school. My classmates were ambitious and driven, and I found their energy infectious. I even connected with a few women in my classes, but I wasn't looking for anything serious. Instead, I enjoyed the camaraderie, the feeling of being part of something bigger than my marriage, which had felt suffocating lately. Meanwhile, Kelly continued her pattern of late nights and questionable behavior. She acted as if nothing had changed, and I found that infuriating. She would saunter in with that same smile, trying to charm me back into normalcy while I silently fumed. I noticed her getting defensive when I didn't engage in her casual banter. She'd ask questions about my classes, but I could tell she wasn't genuinely interested. I had become a puzzle she couldn't piece together anymore. Then, a month into my classes, an opportunity presented itself. There was an upcoming business conference downtown, and I saw it as the perfect chance to network and showcase my newly acquired skills. I signed up to attend, feeling a rush of excitement and a sense of purpose I hadn't had in a while. The day of the conference arrived. I dressed sharply in a suit that I hadn't worn in ages, feeling more confident than I had in months. I spent the morning mingling with entrepreneurs, exchanging ideas and sharing laughs. It was liberating. I even connected with a woman named Mia who worked for a startup. She was smart, funny, and refreshing, everything I needed in that moment. We hit it off, and by the end of the day, I found myself sharing my story with her. I opened up about my marriage, my plans for the future, and how I was using this difficult situation to motivate myself. She listened intently, and I could see the flicker of admiration in her eyes. It felt good to be seen and appreciated for who I was, not just as Kelly's husband. When I returned home that night, Kelly was waiting for me, her arms crossed and a scowl on her face. "Where have you been?" she snapped. "You never told me you were going to a conference." I raised an eyebrow, surprised by her tone. "I didn't think you'd care. You've been busy with your own things," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Busy? Really, Jake, you think I've just been busy?" She shot back, her eyes narrowing. I wasn't in the mood for her drama. "Yes, busy with Derek, right?" I shot back, feeling the heat rise in my chest. Her expression shifted. For a moment, I saw a flicker of guilt, but she quickly masked it with indignation. "You're being paranoid. He's just a friend." She insisted again, but the edge in her voice was unmistakable. "Sure, Kelly," I replied, matching her tone. I was done playing the victim. I had no more time for her lies. The more I learned, the more I felt I could stand up for myself. I wasn't going to let her dictate my emotional state anymore. It was clear to me. I was moving forward with or without her. The pieces were falling into place. She would soon find out that I was no longer the submissive husband who would accept her deceit without question. I had my own plans now, a life that didn't revolve around her lies, and I was willing to see it through. And as I lay in bed that night, I thought about the future. I was ready to execute my plan. My revenge was not just about getting back at Kelly, but about reshaping my life, becoming someone who could stand on his own. I was reclaiming my identity, and no one was going to take that away from me. I knew she would eventually realize the magnitude of her mistakes, but I was no longer interested in playing the part of the betrayed husband. I was ready to embrace the unknown, and nothing could hold me back now. Next, I'll share how my plans began to take shape and the surprising twists that followed. With each passing day, my resolve only grew stronger. I was determined to make the most out of the situation, but I had a feeling that executing my plan for revenge wouldn't be as straightforward as I hoped. I wanted Kelly to understand the consequences of her actions and to realize the depth of her betrayal. I also wanted her to see that while she was busy flirting with someone else, I was busy investing in myself and building a future without her. As weeks turned into months, I continued to excel in my classes and build my network. Mia and I kept in touch, and our conversations became more frequent and personal. I found myself looking forward to her messages, and I even confided in her about my marriage. The support I received felt refreshing compared to the dismissive attitude I got from Kelly. One weekend, I decided to take a trip with some friends from school to a nearby lake. It was a chance to unwind and enjoy life, a breath of fresh air I desperately needed. We rented a cabin and it felt liberating to be away from home, away from the reminder of Kelly's infidelity. I felt free, unburdened, and ready to explore new possibilities. While we were there, I received a text from Kelly. She was demanding to know where I was and why I hadn't answered her calls. I hesitated for a moment, but then I decided to respond honestly. I told her I was away with friends, enjoying some downtime. I expected her to get angry, but instead, she sent back a series of texts filled with passive-aggressive remarks. Must be nice to get away while I'm stuck here. Don't worry, I'll find something to do. Derek and I are going out later. Hope you're having fun. That last text hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt that familiar mix of anger and hurt. How could she flaunt her infidelity like that? But instead of reacting, I took a deep breath and reminded myself of my purpose. I had to remain calm, focused on my goals, so I put my phone away, spent time with my friends, and let the moment wash over me. When I returned home, Kelly was waiting for me, her expression a mixture of annoyance and expectation. You think you can just run off and leave me here? She snapped, crossing her arms. I was tired of the confrontation. You're the one who's been out with Derek. What's the problem? I replied coolly, trying to keep my emotions in check. She huffed and rolled her eyes. You're the one who's acting all high and mighty. Maybe if you were around more, I wouldn't feel the need to find someone else. That was it. I had reached my breaking point. You think this is about me not being around? You're the one who cheated. You've made your bed, Kelly. I'm done playing your games. Her face twisted with disbelief. You don't get to talk to me like that. I'm still your wife. Not for long, I shot back. I was done tiptoeing around her feelings. It was time to lay my cards on the table. I'm not going to support you if you're going to keep disrespecting our marriage. I'm taking control of my life, and if you can't be part of that, then maybe it's time to rethink what we have. I felt empowered saying those words. I was no longer the submissive husband she could manipulate. I was gaining clarity about my worth, and it felt exhilarating. That night, I went to bed thinking about how much I had changed in such a short time, how this experience, as painful as it was, had transformed me into someone who no longer accepted betrayal. Days turned into weeks, and I continued to immerse myself in my studies, determined to create a future that was solely mine. However, things took an unexpected turn when I ran into Mia at a coffee shop one afternoon. We ended up sitting together, catching up on our lives, and it felt natural and easy. As we talked, she asked about my marriage, and I could see genuine concern in her eyes. I told her everything, how I had been betrayed, how I was focusing on myself now, and how Kelly's lies had opened my eyes to the kind of person I wanted to be. That honesty seemed to make Mia even more interested in me. And I felt a spark that I hadn't felt in a long time. We exchanged numbers and began texting regularly. It was refreshing to connect with someone who listened, understood, and provided support without judgment. I found myself smiling again, and I realized that I could move on from Kelly, from the hurt, and from the lies. But as I started to envision a life without Kelly, she ramped up her attempts to regain my affection. She would call me frequently, send texts checking in and showing faux concern. One day she even brought home dinner, trying to play the role of the devoted wife. I knew it was all an act, a desperate attempt to keep me from breaking free. Jake, we need to talk about us, she said one evening, her tone almost sweet. I could see the glimmer of desperation in her eyes. Talk, is that what you call it? Because it sounds more like you're trying to manipulate me, I replied, my voice steady. She looked taken aback, but I could see the wheels turning in her head as she scrambled for her next words. You're overreacting. I've changed. I want to make this work. Her words held no weight for me anymore. Did she really think I would fall for her lies again? I'd grown stronger, and I was ready to make my final decision. I knew I had to be honest with her and myself. The time had come for me to lay everything out on the line. I needed to show Kelly that I was no longer her pawn. I was ready to take control of my life for good. Next, I'll dive into the confrontation that would change everything and the ultimate decision I would make about our future. The tension in the house was palpable as I stood there, watching Kelly squirm under the weight of her own deceit. I was no longer willing to participate in the charade of our so-called marriage. This was it. I was going to confront her head-on and lay all my cards on the table. "Kelly," I began, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. "We need to have a real conversation about our marriage, about what's been happening between us." She shifted her weight, trying to maintain her composure, but I could see the anxiety creeping in. "What do?" "You mean I thought we were on the same page? I've been trying to make things right." She protested, her voice rising a notch. "Trying? You've been out with Derek while I'm over here trying to rebuild my life. You think a few dinners and sweet words are enough to make this all go away?" I shot back, my anger bubbling to the surface. "You've betrayed me, Kelly, and you've shown me that I can't trust you. This isn't just going to blow over with a few apologies." Her eyes widened, and I could see the defiance flickering behind her facade. "You're being dramatic, Jake. You're letting your insecurities get the best of you. I never meant to hurt you." "Please, Kelly," I interrupted, feeling a surge of frustration. "You think this is about me being insecure? This is about you tearing down everything we built together with your selfish actions. I deserve better than to be treated like an option while you screw around with someone else." Her expression shifted from defensive to angry. "Fine. If you're so unhappy, maybe you should just leave," she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls. That was it. I could feel the resolve in my gut solidifying. "You know what? Maybe I will," I stated firmly. "I'm done with this game. I'm done with you. If you think you can waltz back into my life after everything, you're sorely mistaken." The look on her face was one of shock, mixed with a hint of fear. Suddenly, the woman who had always seemed so in control was staring at the reality of losing everything she had taken for granted. "You can't be serious, Jake. You're making a huge mistake." "I don't think I am," I replied coolly. "You've made it clear where your loyalties lie. It's time for me to put my energy into myself, not into a relationship that's built on lies." I could see the tears welling in her eyes, but I wasn't about to back down. I had been the one holding everything together, and now it was time for me to prioritize my own happiness. "Please," she said, her voice softer now, more vulnerable. "I'll do better. I'll cut ties with Derek. Just give me another chance." I shook my head, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about a chance anymore, it's about respect. You've shown me that I can't trust you, and trust is the foundation of a marriage." As I watched her realization sink in, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I was reclaiming my power, and it felt good. I had spent too long bending over backward to make this relationship work, only to have it thrown back in my face. I gathered my things, clothes, personal items, anything that reminded me of a life I was ready to leave behind. I didn't have a specific plan, but I knew I needed to get away, to create space for myself to breathe. As I walked towards the door, Kelly called out to me one last time. "Jake, don't do this. We can work it out, I swear." But her words fell flat. I stepped out into the cool night air, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I never realized how suffocating it had been to stay in a situation where I felt unappreciated and disrespected. I ended up crashing at a friend's place for a few days, and it felt like a breath of fresh air. No more lies, no more pretense, just me finally free to explore my options and determine what I truly wanted in life. In those first few days away, I focused on myself, my classes, my career, and my newfound friendships. The pain of losing my marriage still lingered, but it was overshadowed by a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in years. I was no longer wrapped up in the chaos of Kelly's actions. Instead, I was carving out my identity outside of our relationship. And then, out of nowhere, I got a call from Mia. "Hey, Jake, I heard about what happened. I just wanted to check in on you," she said, her voice warm and comforting. "Thanks, Mia, I appreciate it. Just trying to figure things out," I replied, feeling a flutter of hope. Our conversation flowed easily, and I could sense her genuine concern. "If you need someone to talk to or just hang out with, I'm here," she offered. As we spoke, I felt a connection growing between us, something that had been missing in my marriage for a long time. It was refreshing to talk to someone who didn't come with the baggage of betrayal. I agreed to meet her for coffee the following week, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of excitement. It was a chance to explore new possibilities, to experience life without the weight of my past dragging me down. I was moving forward, leaving the pain behind me, and entering a new chapter of my life where I could finally be the person I was meant to be. Little did I know, my decision to embrace this new beginning would have unforeseen consequences that would further shape my journey. Next, I'll share how my new path intertwined with my past and the unexpected twists that awaited me. As days turned into weeks, I settled into my new routine. The initial shock of leaving Kelly began to fade, and in its place grew a sense of renewed purpose. I poured myself into my studies and my work, but there was also this exciting and unexpected development, my budding friendship with Mia. When I met her for coffee, it felt like a breath of fresh air. She was genuine, down to earth, and seemed to understand the turmoil I had just been through. We spent hours talking, sharing stories about our lives and laughing over shared interests. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could be myself without the fear of judgment or betrayal. "What do you want to do now that you're free?" she asked me one afternoon, her eyes bright with curiosity. I took a moment to think. Honestly, I want to focus on my career and personal growth. I've realized how much I neglected my own ambitions while trying to support someone else. "I want to make something of myself for once," I replied, feeling a sense of clarity wash over me. Mia nodded, understanding flashing in her eyes. "I think that's a great plan. You deserve to put yourself first, and you're already on the right path," she encouraged. As we continued to meet regularly, I found myself looking forward to our time together. Mia became my confidant, and I enjoyed sharing my journey of self-discovery with her. She motivated me to push beyond my boundaries, and I found myself taking risks I never would have considered while with Kelly. But while I was thriving in my new life, I was still haunted by the ghost of my past. Kelly wasn't just going to let me go without a fight. I received sporadic, desperate calls and texts from her, pleading for another chance. One evening, as I was unwinding after a long day, my phone rang. It was Kelly again, and against my better judgment, I answered. "Jake, can we please just talk?" she begged, her voice breaking. I took a deep breath, knowing I had to set clear boundaries. "What is there to talk about, Kelly? You made your choice when you decided to cheat on me. I've moved on. But I've been thinking about everything. I've realized how much I took for granted. I'm sorry," she cried. I felt a pang of frustration. "Sorry doesn't fix what you did. I deserve better than to be someone you turn to when things get difficult. Please, I've changed. I'll do anything to prove it," she sobbed. "Anything? You think words are enough? You've lost my trust, Kelly. Trust that's hard to rebuild." "I need to focus on my own path now," I replied firmly. After that conversation, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. Kelly's pleas were just attempts to manipulate my emotions, and I had finally started to see through her. I was done allowing her to disrupt my life. I had worked too hard to reclaim my sense of self to let her back in now. As I spent more time with Mia, things started to shift between us. The connection I initially felt transformed into something deeper, something undeniably real. We began to talk about our lives, our dreams, and our aspirations. I felt alive again, something that had been missing for far too long. One night, as we were sitting outside under a blanket of stars, Mia leaned closer. "Jake, I know you've been through a lot, but I can't help but feel drawn to you. You're such an incredible person," she said softly. I felt my heart race. "I feel the same way. You've helped me through so much, and I'm grateful to have you in my life." Before I knew it, we were leaning into each other, our lips brushing against one another. It felt exhilarating, and in that moment, I knew I was ready to embrace this new chapter of my life fully. But just as things were starting to blossom between us, I received a text that brought everything crashing back. It was from Kelly. "Jake, I need to talk. There's something important you need to know about Derek," it read. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to get dragged back into her drama, but a part of me couldn't help but feel curious. What could she possibly want to tell me? I decided to reply, keeping my tone casual. "What is it? Can we meet up?" "I promise it's important," she responded. After a moment of hesitation, I agreed. I wanted to hear what she had to say, but I went in with my guard up. Whatever it was, I wouldn't let her use it as an opportunity to manipulate me again. We agreed to meet at a cafe near my old neighborhood. As I walked in, I spotted her sitting alone at a table, her face a mix of anxiety and determination. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice shaky. I sat down, crossing my arms. "Get to the point, Kelly. What's so important?" She took a deep breath, and I could see the hesitation in her eyes. "It's about Derek. He's not who you think he is. I found out some things that might affect you." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" "There's something going on with him that you should know," she continued, her voice trembling. "He's been involved in some shady stuff, and I think you might be in danger." I felt the air leave my lungs. My mind raced as I tried to process what she was saying. "What are you talking about? Why should I believe anything you say?" "Because I care about you, Jake. I messed up, but I still want to protect you. Just hear me out," she pleaded. I wanted to dismiss her, to walk away, but there was an unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach. No matter how much I wanted to ignore Kelly, I had to know what she was talking about. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Fine. What do you know about Derek?" As she started to explain, I braced myself for the unexpected twists that would undoubtedly come with this revelation. Next, I'll explore the shocking truths Kelly revealed and how they would change everything I thought I knew about my life moving forward. Kelly leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if afraid someone might overhear us. "Jake, I know you've seen how he acts when he's around me. He's charming, but there's something darker underneath. I've overheard conversations where he's been involved in sketchy deals. I think he's into something illegal, and I'm worried about you getting caught in the crossfire if he decides to retaliate." My mind was racing. "What kind of deals? What exactly are you talking about?" I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady despite the unease settling in my stomach. She hesitated, her eyes darting around the cafe as if she expected Derek to appear at any moment. "I overheard him talking about some drug deals and money laundering. I didn't think it was serious at first, but then I saw him with some shady characters. That's why I broke it off with him. I realized I could be in danger just being associated with him." I felt my heart rate accelerate at her words. Part of me wanted to dismiss her claims, to believe she was just trying to manipulate me again, but another part couldn't ignore the chilling sensation creeping up my spine. "Why are you telling me this now, Kelly? You had every chance to come clean before, but instead you chose to cheat on me." I know, I messed up and I'm sorry, but I realized how much I care about you," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't want to believe he could be dangerous. I thought he was just a rebound, someone to help me forget. But now I see that I was wrong. Please, you have to be careful." I stared at her, torn between disbelief and concern. "How do I know you're not just trying to win me back with lies? After everything that's happened, I don't know if I can trust you. I understand how you feel, but I swear this is true. I wouldn't tell you if it wasn't important," she insisted, desperation etched on her face. "If you stay away from him, you'll be safe." I didn't realize how serious it was until I saw him with those guys, talking about plans that involved you. I leaned back, processing what she was saying. My mind flashed back to the times I had seen Derek with Kelly, how I had brushed off my instincts, thinking I was being paranoid. What if she was right? What if this was more than just a petty affair? My heart raced as I began to connect the dots. Ultimately, I had to make a choice. I could either take her warning seriously or dismiss it entirely, but I couldn't ignore the underlying truth that I had been living a lie for months. I finally said, "I don't want anything to do with you or Derek. I'm moving forward with my life, but I will take your warning seriously. Thank you for telling me." Her expression softened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the woman I once loved. "I'm truly sorry, Jake. I know I messed up, but I want what's best for you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Right," I replied, feeling a mix of anger and pity. "But what you want doesn't come with a second chance. I need to protect myself now." With that, I stood up and left the cafe, feeling an odd mix of relief and anxiety. I had faced Kelly and her betrayal head-on, and I was resolute about moving forward. But now I had this new information to process. Derek's potential danger loomed over me like a dark cloud. Over the next few days, I reached out to some friends to talk about the situation. I told them what Kelly had revealed, seeking advice on how to navigate the potential threat. They encouraged me to distance myself from anyone associated with Derek, and I took that advice to heart. I made it a point to be more vigilant, keeping my distance from any situations that could involve Derek. I didn't want to take any chances, and I felt a renewed sense of empowerment in my decision to prioritize my safety and well-being. Meanwhile, my connection with Mia deepened. I was honest with her about everything that had happened, including my conversation with Kelly. She didn't flinch. Instead, she was supportive and understanding. "You did the right thing, Jake. You're finally taking control of your life," she said, her eyes shining with encouragement. As we spent more time together, I began to realize that Mia was everything I had been missing in my previous relationship. She was genuine, supportive, and ready to build something meaningful. Just being around her made me feel like I could be myself again. Eventually, the darkness of my past began to fade. I focused on my studies, excelled in my classes, and even started applying for internships that aligned with my career goals. I was no longer defined by my relationship with Kelly. I was carving my own path. In time, I learned how to embrace the challenges that came my way. Kelly's betrayal had hurt me deeply, but it had also propelled me into a journey of self-discovery and growth. I learned the importance of self-worth, trust, and the value of surrounding myself with people who truly cared. As for Kelly, I heard through mutual friends that she had moved on with her life, but I was no longer part of her narrative. I wished her well from a distance, knowing that I had made the right decision to leave her behind. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, I realized that sometimes the most painful experiences lead to the most profound personal growth. I learned that I deserved better than what I had accepted for so long, and I was finally stepping into a life that was authentically mine. I would never forget the lessons I learned through this journey, and I hope that by sharing my experience, I could help others who might find themselves in similar situations. Trust yourself, know your worth, and never settle for less than you deserve. Life is too short to let someone else dictate your happiness. And with that, I closed the door on my past, ready to embrace the future with open arms.